There's a difference between companies that generate wealth and those that just make money. On the surface, the difference is in what they do with the money they make. But the real difference is in how they allocate resources while running the business. Every global example of business excellence started as a small business, so why do only some become industry leaders? As someone who has worked inside a few and studied many, here's my take.
The number one problem that every business struggles with is not enough customers, not enough clients. And I see people so focused on chasing more revenue, on bringing more clients in, that they almost don't see anything else. And they think that as soon as they get more revenue, all my problems will go away. Well, if that was the case, that big, huge companies wouldn't be going broke because they've got plenty of revenue, but we've got enough cases where companies actually not making it at any stage. So it doesn't matter whether it's a one-person business or if it's a huge corporation. So maybe it's not revenue that's stopping the business from success. So revenue and customers, so it's upstream of profit, but it's actually profit that allows you to operate in a better way. What I'm seeing is companies so focused on getting more revenue. So they spend more on marketing, they hire people, they incur all this additional costs trying to fix it. And when they're choosing between running their business better and getting more customers, the choice always seems to go to getting more customers. I just had an example recently. The business is not huge, but it's sizable, a small business on a larger size. And the business is busy. The business could have higher prices, could have more premium offerings. The business could have better margins and better revenue. Yet, the business is making the decision to onboard two more customers, just like the ones the business already has. So what is happening? The business is growing organically. The business actually now stretched on resources and they need to hire one more person. So what happens? The business is just getting bigger. It's not getting better. At a certain stage, if you know how to make money, if you've got customers, the best way is actually to start looking at how can I improve my business? Because if I can improve my business, if I can productize my services, I can prepare the business to grow in a scalable way. The difference between scalable and bigger is that scalable means that you can add more revenue without spending more, or you can add capacity so you can better return on every dollar spent. And I give you another example. This one was very, very visual. For one of the companies I work for, I put together a pie chart that showed the revenue from all the customers. And the revenue in that pie, you can see that one side of the pie had huge wedges. And the other side of the pie, tiny lines that you can't even see. So when you look at that representation of the customers and where revenue is actually coming from, the majority of the revenue, half of all revenue, was coming from just 6 customers. And the rest, thousands of other customers, was the other side of the pie. So if you're trying to grow the business, common sense says that if we look at it and we just add 2 more customers or 6 more customers like those big ones, then we can actually grow our business by 50%. That brings me to the point that yes, maybe you don't have enough customers, but maybe you don't have enough good customers. And this is where finance people can be very, very useful when they look at the structure, when they look at what the business is working with, and step away from the weeds, from the transactions, and actually see what is happening. I was having a conversation, I was training someone just the other day, And I was trying to explain customer segmentation. And I think they were understanding everything up to the point where I was saying, well, the segmentation is not as simple as my customers come from this industry, and that industry. But even just having that simple split and being able to combine and roll up all your customers in these big batches and see how is the batch performing, how big is the revenue in relation to the total revenue of my company, the revenue that is coming from just this batch, and then compare which one is the biggest wedge in the revenue pie that I'm working with. But then once you work that out, then why don't we also do customers by profitability? What if now I have a look at the profit from each of those wedges? How does that look like? So just having that very simple segmentation will allow executives to see their business from a completely different way, and very often make decisions that become so obvious that were not obvious that we were looking just trying to manage the entire bucket. But then we can go further. It doesn't have to be just by industry. It can be by geography. And I've worked with businesses that have always been looking at their business by geography. But within each geography, there is a mix of customers. They all different. On some, you're making a lot of money, even though the margin is thin, because they're easy to work with. They don't cost you much. You don't need to have a dedicated account manager to work with them. Your overheads are so low working with them. But if you look at that just as a territory and never look what's inside, you're trying to grow this pie, but you're growing everything, which means you're also growing inefficiencies, you're also growing risks, and you're also growing your overhead. So you're becoming bigger, not necessarily more profitable and better, because at certain point, bigger becomes more and more expensive. The second problem that I see all the time is businesses are really focusing and trying to solve the wrong problems. And since we started talking about customers, and that's the number one problem, businesses are trying to solve the problem of having not enough clients. So what they do, they spend more money, they design processes and procedures to get more customers. And everything is downstream from that, but what actually is stopping you is profit. This is one of the exercises that I have done plenty of times. Okay, so if we have a look at your whole process, put it down on a piece of paper and create a formula that actually shows what is happening in your business. Then you can step away and see your business model, because actually, if it doesn't work on the back of the envelope, if it doesn't work in a simple formula, when you're trying to run around and execute it, it's actually making things really, really hard. So generally, it's either the business model or the execution of this. So if your business model is never going to be super profitable, easy to grow, scalable, disruptable in the age of AI, maybe we should be looking at your business model rather than trying to solve the problem of having not enough clients, because having more clients may be actually worse for your business if they are the wrong clients. Why that is important? Well, because as you're becoming more desperate, bringing more clients on, you start differentiating less between the quality of those clients. So you can end up diluting that customer base with having more of the worst customers in the mix, when in fact you should be bringing more of the better customers. And that brings me to the third problem. And the third problem that I see all the time is actually connected to people and how people think. With people in those businesses, that they are absolutely unaware that they have a problem at the first place. So what they're doing, they are focusing on their day to day. And I usually bring an example of not seeing the forest behind the trees because we are so engaged on a daily level and we're struggling with the transactions and firefighting everything that is coming down our way. We are so busy that we don't have time to step away, grow ourselves, learn something, look at what we're doing, innovate. So I usually look at how much spare time people have to improve something in the business, to build a new system, to step away and think about the process that they're doing, to think, is my business model still good enough? And because that evolves around people, this solution is for small business, this solution is for medium business, and this solution is for large businesses. The truth is, it's the people in the business. So if the mindset is focused on what they're doing right in front of them, focus is really good, don't get me wrong. But if you focus everything on the wrong thing and focusing everything on the way things have been done for years before you, if you don't step away and look at it, you miss the point. You miss that you actually have a problem at all. I speak with a lot of finance people. So if you are too busy with daily transactions, you've got no time to lead. You've got no time to help the business to improve its profitability. You've got no time to think at a higher level. And another thing that comes up all the time, what is my role? But the truth is, it doesn't matter what your role is. If you're there to contribute and you know that the business is struggling with the margins, and you know that the business is struggling with the customers, and you know that the business is struggling with internal processes, and you know that things need to be improved, if you don't think about, is it my role or not my role? If you start thinking, how can I contribute to the business to change what we have? Because funny thing is, if we don't change what we do, the results are not going to change, like ever. But if you think about the whole business from the perspective of the transactions you are involved with, if you are able to see how that is connected to everything else, how that you're dealing with is a part of a wider business model, and what is that formula that fits on the back of the envelope that incorporates what you're doing. In other words, if you're able to roll things up, if you can rise above the trees and see, what does the forest look like? Where are the patches? Where are the trees thriving and where are they struggling and there's not enough water, and we continue throwing all the resources there when there are areas where we could be, very productive. They're flourishing. We don't have to do much there. So unless we are able to raise above the daily rut and see it, we are really stuck. And if everybody else does the same thing on this daily treadmill, it doesn't change, and it happens for years. And then what happens? Things like AI disruption, those who had times to step away and look, okay, how can AI move my business forward? And one of the conversations that I'm having all the time now with finance people, have you looked at how AI can take 90% of this daily rut away from you? Now, it's probably the same thing that you're doing every day. You're probably doing it in exactly the same way. You probably have exactly the same kind of problems that are coming to you every day that you need to solve. You'll probably have to do exactly the same process. Like if you're in finance, it's an accounting process, it's exactly the same every month. So if it's exactly the same, and you don't really need to make many decisions or you need to change much, why don't you use the technology, modern technology, to actually do all of that? So one of the things that I have always done for like over, I think it's been 24 years or something like this right now, I've been automating everything. Okay, we worked out how to make this process useful. Now, if we automate this process, we don't have to look at it anymore. We've solved this problem. Now we can move to the next problem. When I was starting, I had to hire developers, tell them exactly what my vision is and how we can make this process efficient and great and how we can automate things. They would go and write a program for me. And we would test, and then I would face the issue that often it's a little bit clunky. So if I go for a done solution, I would also have to find my workarounds. And what I find, like a lot of finance people are stuck in those workarounds because, okay, what are the solutions? I'll take this solution and put it in place, and that creates a workaround. I find is just a common thinking everywhere. So we're totally not aware of a problem. But again, we don't have to live in the past because right now with AI, the stuff that I can do with automation is amazing. So right now, I can automate the entire month's end. I can automate all transaction processing. I can automate pretty much everything. And the cost of that is the fraction. It's a tiny fraction of what actually cost for each business to have a person to do this manually. Another example, another business I worked with, they are in project space. So you've got a specifier who works with the customer. It can be an architect, can be a salesperson, can be a doctor. When specifier is working with somebody, they end up with a solution. So solution is different from when you can go and buy the thing. The solution is usually a combination of products and services. And as you have in the conversation, once you worked out what the customer wants, it becomes a project. You go back to your office. What do? In the best case scenario, the company actually pays someone to be a sales admin person who working on the project. They usually either a project manager or account manager, that different titles, but the nature of the job is this. The salesperson sold something, the specifier specified what exactly is in there, and now I have to pull all these things. So it can take like 3 days to specify a project. In the meantime, your customer is waiting for the quotation to come. The bigger the project, the bigger the problem. With AI right now, and as you have a conversation working out what the customer wants, AI can actually listen to this and have the transaction process for you. AI is actually doing it. I am doing it with specific client data and it works. So when somebody says, oh, like AI is so far away, no, it's not. What about the month end? Let's have a look at the month end. You're doing the same thing over and over again. Now, the problem that we had before, I had to hire a developer. I had to explain the logic and I had to create the code that would do what I need to do. We were paying someone to structure the unstructured instructions that I was giving to them. Right now, we don't have this problem anymore. So we can have the same development done in a fraction of cost. Why? Because AI can now look at unstructured data and structure that for me and write a code and run it on the background. So I no longer have to do it. So again, month end, I no longer have to do what I used to do. And it's not some abstract thing that, AI can do it in some big corporations. No, it's actually working and it's available and it plugs into QuickBooks, it plugs into Xero, it plugs into SAP, plugs into your CRMs, HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever you're using, because we are living in the API century. Like everything is API. I've got a system, you've got a system. I can connect to my suppliers, I can connect to banks, I can have feeds from everywhere I want. What it means that you no longer have to download, upload. You no longer have to work with Excel files. You no longer have to plan things the way you used to do it because now you have an assistant that can do it for you. Now, why I spend so much time on it? That because most companies are problem unaware. They're trying to solve their own problems, but they're also trying to solve it with wrong methods, with the methods of the past. So technology is a friend. It's hard to embrace what you don't know. And for that reason, the third biggest problem that businesses face is being unaware of what is happening, and good example of that is technology. Just unaware how far and advanced and cheap technology has become today is stopping businesses from growing. Their margin is extremely high because you no longer have to pay someone to do your monthly reconciliation. It can be done with the press of the button. Are we scared of it? Yes, we are. Are we unaware that the solution is actually here and it's cheaper than the person? I want to finish with this. If we don't start looking deeper and start thinking differently, nothing is going to change. And the only thing that is going to change, this huge technology wave that is coming our way, is going to deeply affect some businesses who are ignoring what is actually happening. If you feel that what I talked about today resonates with you, please reach out. We can look at the solutions that are available. You need to free space. If you have at least 20% of your time dedicated to looking at whatever you are doing from the helicopter height, raising above the forest, to see how everything can be better, more profitable, and how you can help every business flourish.
If this helped you see how you deliver value in your business differently, you'll love what's next. Subscribe to my weekly newsletter at impactstrategy.club and let's build your financial strategy together.